Hey everyone, welcome back to the Founder Series, where we talk about the business of medicine, the biology of midlife, and how to build a life and body that carry you into your next decades with confidence. I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel. I'm a board-certified osteopathic family medicine physician, a certified menopause practitioner, and founder of Osteopathic Midlife Health, where we care for patients virtually across multiple states. All right, everyone. So before we jump in, hit like, subscribe, and share this with a woman who's just been told that this is just aging, because today's episode is about that narrative that is lazy, outdated, and frankly harmful. I want to talk about muscle. I want to talk about gut health, and I want to talk about hormones. And I want to talk about why we keep measuring the wrong things: body weight, BMI, calories, while completely missing what actually predicts health, independence, and longevity. So this episode was inspired by recent high-level conversations around aging, metabolism, muscle science, and translational research. Also, just coming back, if you didn't watch, at the time of this recording, I just returned from my first Longevity Fest. So this is the A4M Longevity Conference held in Vegas. If I remember correctly, it was 8,000 people. And you guys, I don't even know how to describe it. It was huge. I mean, it was, a full morning, and we actually went a day early because we did an additional pathway in hormones. But I was Thursday through Sunday. There were conferences, but the real conference was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was like 5 different pathways in the afternoon. So there was no way that you could get to everything that you wanted. I mean, I was just like, where do I go here? Where do I go there? And so, of course, I had to get the virtual version so that I could go back to the things that I was maybe burnt out by, because these were lectures from like 7:30 in the morning until 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you guys. So, by mid to late afternoon, my brain was burnt. I made sure that I'm able to now go back, look at all the information that I wanted to just go over again. Also go over the information, the lectures I never got to because they were all at the same time. So all these different pathways were going at the same time of day, and big expos and vendors and things like that too. So it was just, if you've not checked it out and you're interested in it, it really was pretty cool. It was at a casino. So it was at the Venetian, which was really cool. We did a lot of really neat stuff, including seeing the Wizard of Oz in the Sphere, which, all right, I'm just going to tell you 2 things about this. If you are afraid of heights, double check and think about it, because I literally thought I was one false step away from falling down into this thing. It's like straight up. It was so scary. And literally my feet were sweating because I was really scared, and I don't like heights. So that's number 1. Number 2, if you get motion sick, you might want to think about watching this, or maybe taking some Dramamine or something like that before you go in, because literally you feel like you are moving with the Wizard of Oz. But it was pretty spectacular. And, from like real snow and wind and apples falling from the sky. Of course, they weren't real apples. They were like foam apples or something like that. But it was just quite the experience. And then when you got out of there, it was like they had everything decorated downstairs, like the Emerald Palace on the inside with a hot air balloon. And it was really cool. So anyway, we were able to do some really fun stuff, some food. We also did some karaoke with some new friends of that I made with my girlfriends. And so that was a lot of fun. And let me tell you, when you are doing like late 80s and 90s, you can sing all night long. And literally, I think we did. So anyway, I digressed. So, what struck me, is that there is data. So we have data, we understand the physiology, but, our systems, our metrics, our expectations are, I feel like, still pretty behind. So, we want to fix that. So let's start with muscle, because muscle loss is quite the driver of aging-related decline. Sarcopenia, which I have talked about before, sarcopenia is muscle wasting. We lose muscle as we age, especially if we don't resistance train. And so the keynote speaker at the Longevity Fest was Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, who is, I believe, internal medicine and geriatrician. And I was really quite impressed with her lecture and her keynote. It was very, very good. And she talked all about, the importance of muscle, the importance of resistance training, the importance of preventing sarcopenia. We know it's widely underdiagnosed, it's widely misunderstood. And some of the key clinical pearls I took from her lecture is that, sarcopenia is not about muscle size, but it's about force, right? So we have loss of strength, loss of power, loss of the ability to interact with the world. So that's what predicts falls. Also, loss of independence and disability, which then causes an institutionalization and, yes, also mortality. So muscle strength predicts outcomes better than body weight, better than BMI, better than most lab values that we obsess over. Not me. I don't obsess over that. So you know that if I'm seeing you. And yet we still center conversations around the scale. And I know, I get it. We all get it. Like, we can only do so much. Insurance only covers if you are a certain BMI. What changes with aging isn't just how much muscle you have, but it's how much force you can generate, right? And this force is what lets you do things like get up off the floor, carry your groceries into your house. If you are a patient of mine, I talk to you about, if you fall, you have to get back up. You need to be able to carry groceries up the few steps and into your home. You have to be able to protect yourself and live as healthy independently as possible. So the good news is that aging muscle still adapts at any age. So that was really, really cool to hear her say that that's not motivational fluff, that it is physiology. Resistance training works in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s, 70s, and beyond, and that there's no expiration date on adaptation. There are critical windows, though, where muscle matters most. So early in life, in childhood, and older adulthood. So you miss those windows and that decline can accelerate. Next, I talk about protein is not optional. Again, if you are doing weight loss with me, I talk about protein like it's your best friend, because it is. So, and hydration. So let's talk about protein, because this is where I see women unknowingly sabotaging themselves, right? Low protein diets accelerate your muscle loss. They promote fat gain, adipose tissue gain. They worsen insulin resistance and increase frailty risk. So calories without protein are not neutral, but they are harmful as we age. We know that high quality protein improves satiety, right? And satiety means feeling full. So when you're satiated, you feel full. It's another fancy word for full. It also preserves lean mass, supports your immune function, and protects metabolic. This we know is especially critical in midlife and menopause, when estrogen declines and muscle becomes harder to maintain, right? Decreasing estrogen plus the aging process, okay? And unfortunately, we cannot out-supplement inadequate protein. If protein intake is low, the body adapts by breaking down muscle, not fat, muscle. And that's the trade-off. You can do a cross-section of a thigh and see that maybe if they're the same circumference, but the difference in fat deposition, one has much smaller muscle, but is filled with adipose tissue. And the other that has resistance training is nice and full of a big muscular thigh. We know that exercise is a metabolic regulator. It's not just about weight loss. And if it's the only lens you're using, you're missing the point. Exercise regulates your glucose. It regulates your fat storage and your insulin sensitivity, your energy balance as well. And even modest increases matter, right? A 50% increase from a sedentary baseline, not extreme training, produces significant health benefits. And here's something most people don't understand. The body uses force-corrected mechanisms. When you move more, metabolism adapts. So glucose handling improves. Energy efficiency recalibrates. And this happens independent of weight loss. So, which means if the scale isn't moving, but your strength is improving, you're still winning. I know it's like counterintuitive, especially for women, especially midlife women. Okay. Let me say that again. If your scale isn't moving, but your strength is improving, you're still winning, right? So you need to measure your strength, grip strength, being able to get up and down from the floor. Okay. Using body composition, extremely important. So we need to stop confusing fat loss with health, weight loss with health, right? the gut hormone inflammation axis. So let's connect the dots because muscle and metabolism do not exist in isolation. Gut health, which I'm starting to become very fascinated by and learning so much. And there was so much of this at the conference, and I was like soaking it all in, and I will need to go back over and over and over all of this. But gut health is foundational. Increased gut permeability, what people call leaky gut. This all drives systemic inflammation. It can drive insulin resistance and hormone dysregulation. Listen, all of this Longevity Fest was so much biochemistry. It was like totally nerding out about all of this. And it's like you have to think about back at med school. Also cardiovascular risk and metabolic disease and even cancer risk as well. It's just fascinating. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Dysbiosis is the norm, not the exception. Isn't that crazy? Processed food, chronic stress, sedentary behavior, poor sleep. Most patients have reduced microbiome diversity. So dysbiosis, okay? Even without GI symptoms. So then you layer hormones on top of that. Let's go back a little bit and talk about dysbiosis, because these are words that are just like everybody in the longevity space differently throws around. But if you're new to this space, then it's like when you first started doing hormones and you're just like, I have no idea. It's drinking from a fire hydrant. So dysbiosis is a harmful imbalance or alteration of the composition and function of microbial communities in the body, in the gut. So referring to the gut microbiome. It can manifest as decreased bacterial richness and diversity or as bacterial overgrowth. When dysbiosis occurs, the protective function of the microbiome, including maintenance of the intestinal barrier, immune modulation, and production of beneficial metabolites like short-chain fatty acids, can become compromised. Okay, so and I'll go back, layer hormones on top of that. The estrobolome, I know this is new, right? I was learning all of these things. So the estrobolome is a subset of gut bacteria that regulates estrogen metabolism. So when gut health is impaired, estrogen is improperly metabolized. Let me go back and explain a little bit more. The estrobolome refers to the aggregate of intestinal bacterial genes capable of metabolizing estrogens, in particular through the enzymes of beta-glucuronidases and beta-glucosidases that deconjugate reactive estrogen. I know, don't let me lose you here. It's crazy. These bacterial enzymes regulate the enterohepatic liver circulation of estrogens, which are then influencing their bioavailability and circulating levels in the body. I know it's a lot. That's kind of where this alteration in the estrobolome composition and function have been associated with some various estrogen-related diseases, PCOS, endometriosis, breast cancer, endometrial cancer. And the estrobolome also metabolizes dietary phytoestrogens into active metabolites as well. Okay. All right. So hopefully I haven't lost you completely. So estrogen metabolites are reabsorbed. Hormonal volatility increases and risk for estrogen-driven conditions arise, just like I was saying. So this matters, like we were saying, like I was just saying before, in PCOS, endometriosis, perimenopause, and some breast cancer risk conversations as well. And menopause itself worsens dysbiosis. We've talked about this: lower estrogen, reduced microbiome diversity, increased inflammation, higher metabolic risk. So it's not just coincidence, it's physiology. And it's stuff that, like, you guys, we're not taught this stuff, just like we weren't taught hormones. This is why you go to conferences. This is continued medical education. Okay. So PCOS, endometriosis, and metabolic inflammation. So PCOS is not just an ovarian condition, and endometriosis is not just pelvic pain, but both are systemic inflammatory conditions with gut involvement. PCOS is associated with reduced microbiome diversity, increased inflammatory signaling, insulin resistance, androgen excess, even in lean women. So endometriosis often overlaps with IBS, right? Anxiety, immune dysfunction, estrogen recycling issues, which is why treating hormones alone sometimes fails in these women. So fiber matters, movement matters, stress regulation matters, targeted probiotics matter. This is systems biology and not just siloed care. So why do we need better metrics? One of the biggest failures in modern healthcare is we measure what's easy and not necessarily everything that matters: weight, BMI, calories. But none of those tell me, can you generate force? Can you recover from a fall? Can you carry load? Can you function independently? So I think future research and future care must focus on these things such as strength, power, movement quality, real world functioning, video analysis, movement tracking, functional testing, because muscle loss doesn't just change bodies, it changes behavior, environments, and systems. Design has to reflect the reality. Closing here, the bottom line. Muscle's foundational to aging well. You guys, I'm a firm believer in that. I know I don't like to get up at the crack of dawn to go lift weights, but I do. It's so important. I don't want to just live longer. I want to live healthier longer. Next, protein plus resistance training are non-negotiable. If you are one of my patients, I tell you this ad nauseum. Protein and resistance training are non-negotiable. Small increases in activity matter. I know sometimes you guys will say, I can only get out for 10 minutes. I could only lift for 10 or 15 minutes. Awesome. I would love a lift for 10 to 15 minutes every day. Cool. It's better than no minutes. Okay. Gut health drives inflammation and hormone balance as well. So we need to train. Estrogen does not work in isolation, and function matters more than metrics. If your care plan is focused only on weight, it's incomplete. If it ignores muscles, it's negligent. And if it ignores your gut health, it's probably short-sighted. So this is not about doing more, but about doing what actually works. And this is the future of midlife medicine. If this episode resonated, make sure you share it because women deserve better metrics and better care. All right, all. If this conversation resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone who needs to hear it, whether it be a colleague, a student, a woman ready to think differently about her health and her future. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to follow, like, and subscribe. It's the easiest way to support this work and helps this content reach more people, more women who need it. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow the show and leave a review. Those reviews matter more than you realize and help other listeners find the series. You can also follow me across platforms for more education on all the social, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, for more education, clinical insights, and founders content. For clinicians, you can earn CME if you listen to this on the Pinnacle app. And if you want to learn more about how we approach midlife care, hormone optimization, metabolic health, you can find me at Osteopathic Midlife Health. So as always, this series exists to help you think differently about your body, your career, and your future. Because the next decades of your life deserve intention, strength, and clarity. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time on the Founder Series.